When you haven't found love, it can feel like everyone else has. It's in every movie, every song, and all the PDA. Looking for love sucks. Thankfully, California Psychics can give you the guidance you need to find the one. We guarantee if your reading isn't life-changing, it's free. And new customers receive 20 minutes for just $20. Visit CaliforniaPsychics.com and experience the joy of certainty. California Psychics.
You know what it is. That's right. It's time to talk money with your money nerd and financial coach. Now, tighten those purse strings and open those ears. It's the Money Talk with Tiff podcast.
Hey, and welcome to another episode of Tiffany's Take here on the podcast. Now, I know it's been a while since I have done a solo episode, but I've been hitting you all with interview after interview for weeks. Let's take a little break and get into some Tiffany's Take. So this topic that I'm getting into, I get a lot of people reaching out to me about quitting their day job, getting into entrepreneurship, and especially now that I am living abroad and running my business from abroad, a lot of people are trying to get out of the US and okay, how can I do this? How can I make this switch to entrepreneurship and specifically digital entrepreneurship? So I wanted to go over something I've never talked about on the podcast before, maybe here or there, but I wanted to dedicate an entire episode to the mindset shifts that need to happen if you're thinking about leaving your day job and going into entrepreneurship, because it's a whole different ball game. And I had to learn the hard way back when I first went into full-time entrepreneurship in 2019. You think, once I quit, I'll have all this time and blah, 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 blah. And lo and behold, that is not the case. So I do want to shout out, I read an article on Inc.com that was somewhat the inspiration for this episode. And with my own entrepreneurial journey, I know I've talked about on the podcast before, mentally it's exhausting, physically it's exhausting, all types of things. They say entrepreneurs are the only ones crazy enough to quit a 40-hour-a-week job to work 60. But with that said, I do enjoy what I do and I love entrepreneurship and I wouldn't change it for the world. So let's just hop right in. The first mindset shift that you have to have is just coming to terms with the reality of being your own boss. That's important because when you're working for someone, typically you have a boss, whether that's if you're in C-suite, it might be the CEO, or if you are individual contributor, it might be a manager, so on and so forth. But when you're working for yourself, you are the boss. So you are the one that has to come up with the strategy. You have to come up with who does what. You have to come up with all of those different things that when you work for someone, you don't have the you don't have to be the one being the worker and the boss at the same time, if that makes sense. So another thing is it's important to have a support system of people that are also bosses. So whether it's mentors, coaches, business organizations, maybe somebody in your field that you aspire to be like, it's important to have a support system of people that understand what you are going through. Because I will tell you, as a full-time entrepreneur, a lot of people don't get it. And especially if they are working for someone and have never done this before on their own themselves, they are not going to understand you. So you need to make sure that you surround yourself with people that are going to understand what you're going through. So for me, I have, industry specific groups. I also have creator specific groups. So like I have a group of podcasters that I talk to, a group of bloggers that I talk to, a group of personal finance people that I talk to, so on and so forth. So you get the gist. Just make sure that you're surrounding yourself with people that understand what you're going through. The next one I'll say is there's a difference between skills and business acumen. So you can do your job. You've proven it because you have this business, right? So you can do whatever it takes to run that business, whether it's a digital business or you're making widgets or gadgets or what have you. But just because you're good at your craft does not mean that you're good at business or that automatically translates to business success. So even though you may be an expert in whatever it is you do, you still need to learn business building skills like leadership, marketing, financial management is a big one people come to me about. Learn at least the basics. Even if you decide that you want to hire out for some of this stuff, you still, as the CEO of your own company, need to know just the basics of some of these things, especially the marketing and the financial management, which I'll get to marketing next. But that's the stuff that you need to know. And especially when you're first starting out, and most of us start out as a team of one. So you're going to be responsible for all of those different things. And so you have to at least have basic understanding of these business topics. So I recommend reading business books, listening to business podcasts like this one, taking some courses if you want to, getting a mentor. Like I said, it's imperative to have people around you that do what you do, okay? Because that is how you're able to #rise and live, right? So as somebody else is going along, they might be like, oh, this is something that I struggled with when I first started. This is what I did. And so now you have that information to take and go forth and prosper. So there's a bunch of different resources available. I'll make sure that I drop some in the show notes for you all. And the next one I want to go over is marketing. So even if you're not good at marketing, you've never tried marketing before, it is a must-have when you have your own business. And unfortunately, it also costs money. So whether you decide to do it yourself or you want to hire somebody to do it for you, marketing is going to cost money, and you need to have a marketing budget for your business, even if you are just starting. Because what's the purpose or what's the use of creating whatever it is you're creating and nobody can find it? Your ideal client can't find you. Speaking of ideal client, that is something to wrap your head around too. Who are you talking to? I've had this conversation at least 5 times this week with different entrepreneurs. You have to understand who it is that you're talking to. If you don't understand, they're not going to understand. So you have to define and understand who your ideal client is, then build a marketing budget around that. Where do they live? Who are these people? What do they like to look at? What do they like to do? Then you can start thinking about, okay, let me hit these marketing platforms because these would be the best for my ideal client or audience. So then you can start having more strategic planning. And that's something that if you're working for someone, unless you're working in the marketing department, you don't have to think about. The customers are already coming in, the clients are already coming in. It's just up to you to do whatever it is your job is to do. But when you are on your own as a entrepreneur, a solopreneur, then you now have to take that helm. And so at least understanding the basics of marketing, who you want to talk to, because even if you hire out for this, which a lot of people do, I used to have a whole digital marketing firm doing this for other business owners. But even when you have a digital marketing firm or somebody helping you, you still have to be able to explain to them who you're talking to, So this is something that, it may take you some time to nail down, but it's completely worth it completely worth it to go ahead and do that. So marketing is a must-have, but it's also going to cost money. So you got to wrap your head around that. The next one is the power of mindset. How you think and feel on a daily basis, minute basis, hour basis will impact your business, period. Because everything revolves around you. As someone that dealt with long-term anxiety and depression, severe, diagnosed, taking medicine, all types of stuff for most of my life, as a full-time entrepreneur, if I'm having a bad day or a down day, there's nobody that's going to take up the helms for me. You know what I'm saying? Even if I have a team, they're just responsible for what they're responsible for. They're not responsible for what I'm responsible for. So if you have feelings of any emotional challenges, depression, anxiety, or you doubting yourself, you fearing something that's coming up, blaming yourself for stuff, all of that trickles into the business. So it's important to maintain a positive and resilient mindset. And I'll be honest with you, even though I've been doing it for so long, started this business in 2017, full-time since 2019, there are days where I'm like, I don't want to do this. Like, I'm just not feeling this today. And actually just recently, I thought about selling Money Talk with Tiff in totality. I'm not, y'all, so don't worry. But I seriously was thinking about that just last week because I said, like you just get fatigued as an entrepreneur doing it. So I will say things that help me keep pushing is, especially in my line of work, is when people reach out to me and they're like, oh my gosh, Tiffany, that is so helpful. And what really gave me a little oomph, actually this week, I learned that I've been nominated for an award for best entrepreneurship and small business content. So I'm like, people are actually listening to my stuff, reading my stuff. I got to keep going. So little nudges like that, when people reach out to me and stuff, that really helps to keep me going. Also keeping up with all of my achievements and things. I use a tool called Notion. I'll have a link in the show notes for that as well. But I use that to keep up with all of my, if I'm mentioned in the press about anything, or I get an award, or I have an article that goes live for a different platform, whatever the case may be, I have something that keeps track of all of those wins. So that way, when I'm feeling down, I'm like, dang, do I want to keep going? I can also have that to look back on too. Also, you want to make sure that you have a solid proof of concept before you quit your day job, and make sure that you planned as much as you can. Now, don't plan yourself into paralysis, but plan enough and make sure that people are willing and ready to buy whatever it is that you want to offer before you quit your day job. Because I always say, use other people's money to build your dreams. So that's why with my business, for instance, I started it 2 years before I even thought about going full time with it, because I wanted to make sure I had the cash flow. I wanted to make sure I could do things on my own, like get health insurance, all that good stuff that you take for granted when you work for someone. When you're out on your own, you're responsible for all those benefits. So open up your employee handbook and read all the benefits that you get for working with someone, and just imagine all of that going away and you're being responsible for that. So you want to make sure that you are ready. It's not as simple as, oh, I have enough money saved, or I'm just tired of these people. Whatever the case is not about that. You really have to think about it, because there's a lot of things that you give up going into full-time entrepreneurship. I know there's been times in my journey where I'm like, dang, I wish I just had a job real quick, because I know I can use that job to get to where I'm trying to go a little faster. I can use those benefits like a 401k match and, the this, that, and the other to get where I'm trying to go fast. A steady paycheck. That's another thing people don't talk about with entrepreneurship. You can have a really, really good day or a really, really good month, and then the next day or the next month, it could be nothing. So having that steady paycheck just gives you a peace of mind that will go away once you go into full-time entrepreneurship. So that's another mindset thing that you got to wrap your mind around. Another one, this is big for me, especially because I'm a serial entrepreneur. I love trying new things. I love new all the time. But sometimes new ideas do get in your way. So you have to stay focused and avoid those distractions. One thing that I used to think about when I first started in entrepreneurship, I was like, nobody had to force me and sit down and do my job when I used to work for someone. But me being at home working for myself, you looking at the laundry, you looking at this, you looking at that, you get busy doing other stuff, running around town, whatever it is you think you have the time to do, and then you don't have time for your business. And then even while you're in your business, it's easy to start swaying. There's going back to surrounding yourself with a support system. In my industry, for instance, everybody was like, oh, you got to have video. So guess what I did? I said, okay, I'm going to go ahead and do video, right? And I did video for like a year, but then my audience said, Tiffany, we don't need video. We like listening to you. So I spent all that time for a whole year working on video, working on YouTube, getting extra editing, all that stuff, when I really didn't need it for my platform. So you have to decide what your goals are, overarching, and then making sure that you're staying focused and avoiding the noise. Because whatever industry you're in, there's going to be a lot of noise because everybody does everything differently. And when new ideas come up, you have to go back to your original goals and be like, okay, does this align? Is this what I'm trying to accomplish? Is this where I'm trying to go with this? And if not, put it to the side. You can always maybe do it later after you get a little more established, but there's definitely a new shiny object syndrome that happens when you're in entrepreneurship, even more so than when you're working for someone. So you have to be aware of that mindset shift as well. I will say to definitely schedule time for brainstorming, recalibrating to your goals, things of that nature, at least bare minimum once a quarter. Because it's very easy to get drift. And then once you get drift, you don't know where you're going after that. All right. So one more that I wanted to go over is another mindset shift is spending on things versus investing in growth. There is a difference between spending on tangible items and investing in personal and professional development. So as an entrepreneur, it's super important to invest in yourself and invest in your business. So that may look like going to different conferences that align with what you do, or having coaching, or taking free courses. I'll link to some courses, platforms like Coursera and things where you can start building more skills that you may not have already. It's a lot of value in investing in your business. In my own journey, I'll say one investment that always pays off for me every single time I go is going to FinCon. That is a conference for personal finance creators like myself to go, and just being amongst other people that do what I do, whether they're podcasting, blogging, social media influencers, whatever the case may be, speakers, we all get together and share information, share what works, share what doesn't work, partner on things. A lot of the people you've heard on the podcast are people that do what I do. And we are more than happy to have each other on podcasts and doing blog articles and things like that, because it helps both of us. So those are things where I've had to make investments and sometimes down to my last dollar. One investment that I had a long time ago when I was in corporate America was a corporate coach. It was somebody that I hired to help me with my resume, my cover letter, my interviewing skills, how to navigate corporate America, because that's a whole different TED Talk in of itself. So making that hire early in my career helped me advance my career fast and far. I mean, I was a step below C-suite. I was an HR business partner at the peak of my career, which is a step below like a CHRO. And so for me, investing in yourself has always paid dividends, and I highly recommend doing that. So just to recap all of the different mindset shifts, if you're thinking about ditching your day job and thriving as an entrepreneur, one, realize that being your own boss is different and you have to wrap your mind around that. Having the skills versus having the business acumen, marketing as a non-negotiable, the power of your mindset, so how you feel and think and how that impacts your business, staying focused and avoiding the distractions, and spending versus investing in yourself and your business. So highly recommend just listening to what I just went over and reflecting on your own readiness for entrepreneurship. If some of the things that I discussed, maybe you were listening, it was like, ooh, I didn't think about that. Start thinking about it and seeing how you're going to navigate your way around. With that said, I'll probably do a few more solo episodes and we'll get back to the interviews, but please be sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening, and share it with someone considering share this episode with someone considering entrepreneurship, and visit my website for more resources. I'll make sure I have a link in the show notes, moneytalkwitht.com. Thank you so much for listening to the show. I highly thank you, because I would not be here if it wasn't for you. And thank you so much for listening to the podcast and engaging with Money Talk with Tiff across social media at Money Talk with T, and then also on my website, moneytalkwitht.com. I so appreciate you, and I look forward to having some more money talks. Bye.
Thank you for listening, joining, and being a part of the Money Talk with Tiff podcast this week. You can check Tiff out every Thursday for a new Money Talk podcast. But if you just can't wait until next week, you can listen to previous podcast episodes at moneytalkwitht.com or follow Tiff on all social media platforms at Money Talk with T. Until next time, spend wise by spending less than you make. A word to the money wise is always sufficient.